Okay, I think most NBA fans are on the same page here. Whereas other matchups in the bracket this year look evenly balanced, there's one matchup that looks especially lopsided, and that's this one, the Bulls versus the Bucks. Vegas betting odds and NBA media outlets are commonly calling for a beatdown in this series. The common consensus is that the Chicago Bulls are in big trouble, and that they just don't have the ability to take down the champs in round one, especially after their performance drop-off since the All-Star break. However, the Chicago Bulls are full of fiery personalities and guys who have a big chip on their shoulder. The way I see it, no matter how tough your opponent is, no team is unbeatable. It's going to be a serious uphill climb for Chicago. But here are three key factors that I think the Bulls must successfully employ if they even want a chance to beat the Bucks. Factor number one, limit Giannis's impact and make other guys beat you on both sides of the floor. Now look, it's not exactly deep basketball analysis to say that you should shut down the other team's best player, but there is some merit here. The Bucks went 45-22 with Giannis in the lineup this year for a 67.2% win percentage, but went 6-9 or 40% win percentage with Giannis out. If we're talking pure numbers here, the Milwaukee Bucks performed 27.2% worse than normal without their star on the floor this year. Of course, that's when he's not playing. Knowing the kind of player that Giannis is and the kind of mentality he has, he's going to be on the floor every night and for a lot of minutes. But taking him away from as many offensive and defensive plays as possible to tip the odds away from the Bucks is the most crucial aspect for a Bulls W. For Chicago to even have a chance at all, they need to keep Giannis out of the painted area on offense and defense as much as physically possible. It's not going to be easy. Keeping the ball out of his hands will be necessary, but that will be incredibly difficult. Consider this. The Chicago Bulls got a lot of their W's this year by supplementing their middle-of-the-pack defense with exceptional high-percentage offense. But defense wins championships, and the Bucks are that championship team. They're a top 10 defensive team this year, and that's primarily due to Giannis's on-court presence. The Bucks' defensive rating was 111.8 this year with Giannis on the floor, and 117.7 without him. For context, the season's league average defensive rating was right around 112 this season. In layman's terms, with Giannis on the floor, the Bucks are a little bit better than league average on defense, and would be tied with Philadelphia for 12th in the league in team defense. When they're without Giannis though, it's a different story. Without Giannis Antetokounmpo, they would be tied with the Houston Rockets for 29th in the league in team defense, and that's even including the contributions of Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, and Serge Ibaka. The Bucks' front court depth just doesn't have the same weight nor ability that Giannis alone does. So what? What's my point? Well, for an offensive-minded Bulls team, this is a tremendous difference maker. They can try their best to follow the blueprints of other teams that have succeeded in vanquishing Giannis in the playoffs, and a great example of a playoff team cutting Giannis out from plays and containing him is how the championship Raptors team from 2018-2019 did, with scrambling defense, clogging the paint, and establishing doubling traps on him on the inside. In previous matchups versus the Bucks, we have seen the Bulls find some success in clogging the lane when Giannis is on the perimeter. This makes it much harder for him to convert inside and forces him to take shots from farther out, and it entices him to try and facilitate rather than try and score himself. On paper, a defensive zone scheme sounds like a great way to limit the 61.6% of two-point buckets that Giannis converts this season, as taking it to the rim is his natural forte on offense. A properly executed zone has proven an effective counter to a Giannis-centric offense. But once you create your zone, you begin to create perimeter spacing and open three-point scoring opportunities for the many hot hands the Bucks have on their roster. This leads me right into my second factor. Factor number two, your high-powered offense must be more effective than theirs, and more consistently too. Look, the Bucks are champs for a reason. You're not going to stop the entire team, so the Bulls are going to have to pick and choose which player to direct their defensive attention to and game planning for. That player is Giannis, as we established, which means Bucks stars like Jrue Holiday and Khris Middleton are going to get a lot of opportunities to have the ball in their hands. These are both guys that can give you a 30 ball on any given night. Giannis will always be the best player on the floor in this series, meaning it will be absolutely crucial for DeMar DeRozan and Zach Lavine to assert themselves as the second and third best players on the floor for the Bulls to have any chance to make this competitive. So, how can they do that? They have to game plan intelligently and try to patch up some of the things that haven't been working out since the All-Star break. Right in front of you, I've posted the shooting percentages for both of these teams for the season. Now, they get their points in different ways, but these two teams shoot extremely similar percentages in most categories. And so, the Bulls will need to run a tight and coordinated ship on the offensive end. I think they can do that by making a few adjustments. First of all, adjustments for DeMar DeRozan. DeRozan has a bad rep in the playoffs, but this year he's converting 35.2% of his three-point attempts, which is around league average for the first time in his career. He's only shooting 1.9 attempts from outside a game though, and if he's going to convert at that rate, I wouldn't mind seeing a few more. When I watch matchups between these two teams, the Bulls look kind of small compared to Milwaukee. The Bucks are a tall and long team, and it might be tough for DeRozan to get his shot off in the mid-range over these guys. When he gets the ball and he's going downhill, I'd like to see DeMar target bigs. Brook Lopez and Serge are big bodies, but they're much slower and easily exploitable for a guy like him. High pick and rolls to lure the big out of the paint and cutting plays will help DeRozan get the extra step on these guys, but it's going to come down to his teammates' ability to help him out in these opportunities as well. DeRozan also has the highest chance of attracting doubles all series, and he's going to have to adjust his ISO-heavy game to do so properly. I think his floor vision and his ability to facilitate and create looks for his teammates will be tested immensely in this series. For me, it's less about doing new things or doing more things for DeMar, and more about how his teammates will use movement, floor spacing, screening, and action plays to help him do his job more effectively. What about Zach Lavine? Zach has been kinda going through it this year, and he still looks great out there, but I do wonder about his durability with this knee injury of his. I'd like to see him be even more decisive and faster in this series. His natural ability as a ball player will be tested against his playoff inexperience in this series, and will be pretty illuminating. I don't doubt his ability or his decision making, but there isn't a lot of room for error against this team. Something really interesting I've noticed with Zach is how efficient he's been shooting the ball this year, specifically as a catch-and-shoot player from three. And the thing is, he only shoots about 2.6 catch-and-shoot attempts a game from outside, but he drains a whopping 46% of them this season. That's an absurd percentage that beats Luke Kennard's 44.9% from outside for the highest three-point percentage in the league. That is, if this was the only type of outside shot he takes, but it's not. Instead, as we know, Lavine likes to find his rhythm with the dribble, and when you compare the raw numbers, only 15.8% of his threes are taken without a dribble, whereas 24.3% of his threes are taken after at least one dribble. Yet, he converts threes off the dribble at a much lower rate in comparison to his catch-and-shoot threes, hitting only 36% of his shots off the dribble. We've seen that he's incredibly effective in a catch-and-shoot situation from outside, and I think shots of this nature will probably be a little bit better for injury maintenance for Zach and allow him to go a little bit further with his current knee issue. Finally, if Lavine is going to go downhill and go to the bucket, I'd imagine that he'd have a higher success rate if the team can help him get switches onto anybody other than Jrue Holiday or Giannis, who are undoubtedly the toughest defensive players on the Bucks. I think Zach has the ability to get a consistent bucket on anybody other than these two, so I say go with that. There are a few team adjustments I think that will also be important. Crashing the boards will be crucial, especially when Vucevic is off the floor or out of position. I'd also like to see them ditch the iso ball strategy and play a little bit more actual team basketball. I'd like to see them run more plays for guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach Lavine and get them in cutting positions, and also count on the Bucks to double DeMar and plan for that. I also think Billy Donovan's coaching style fits well with his team, and that he should double down on his movement and cutting-centric offense. Bulls players are going to need to emphasize off-ball movement more, making cuts around the floor even if they aren't expecting to get the ball in their hands or if it isn't feasible. The death of this team against the Bucks will be if the ball stays stagnant in the hands of guys who will try to iso their way out of a tough situation. I'd like to see the coaching staff keep a tight leash on streaky guys like Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. Chicago is dead last in three-point attempts this season, but they're the fourth best three-point shooting team in the league in terms of percentage of threes made. They absolutely need to expand on this. Finally, the Bulls are going to have to win their individual matchups. There are a lot of emotions between these two teams, and they're going into this as the underdogs, so they're going to have to win the mental battle as well as the physical battle and make all of the right plays more consistently than their opponent. Factor 3. Nikola Vucevic must play his best games in a Bulls jersey for this series. Vucevic is having the worst season both volume and efficiency-wise in 6 years of his career this year. This is despite the Bulls giving him all of the inside looks and spacing he would want to operate on due to the gravity of Zach Lavine and DeMar DeRozan. His ability has visibly regressed with this team, and now he's unfortunately the Bulls' only real answer to Giannis outside of role players and young guys that the Bulls will throw at him, like Patrick Williams and DJJ. Anchoring the interior defense will be his responsibility, which has never been the strongest aspect of his game, but will be crucial against a team that plays like Milwaukee does. Right in front of you is a comparison between Giannis and Vucevic in matchups this year. You'll notice there's a consistent performance drop-off for Vucevic versus the Bucks this season, and what's even worse, Giannis averages higher than normal boards and blocks as well as defensive stats against the Bulls, and if that wasn't bad enough, Nikola Vucevic had an average plus-minus of -22 against the Bucks in 4 games this year. I think some of Vuc's regression this year can certainly be attributed to the fact that in the past, he's been utilized as a primary option offensive center, whereas on this team, he's sort of become the primary paint defender and has been thrust far into a defensive role that doesn't exactly match his natural playstyle. On offense this year, he's only averaging 1.5 seconds per touch of the basketball, and even worse than that, Vuce is averaging 0.51 dribbles per touch of the basketball. The last time either of these numbers were so low was the 2014 season, 8 years ago. And what is even worse, he's also averaging the least amount of paint touches in his career and the second least amount of post touches. I think this team needs to find a way to utilize Vucevic properly as the offensive option that he has always been, a mid-range shooting big man with strong footwork around the rim and high isolation efficiency. This season, Vuce has primarily been reduced to a pick-and-roll man, and not a particularly effective one either. With the Bulls, pick-and-roll plays have accounted for around 37% of his usage this season, which is the highest mark in his career. Unfortunately, he only scores on about 49% of these plays, which accounts for his lowest shooting efficiency since 2017. With all of the ball-dominant guards around him, Vuce's role as an offensive player has been significantly changed and reduced. We've seen him take a lot of low-percentage catch-and-shoot looks this season, and he kinda looks like he doesn't want to have the ball in his hand at times. However, it will absolutely be up to him to put the ball on the floor. When he starts working in the post and he has the green light to ISO around the rim, he generally scores. He'll have to get the team some points in ways he's traditionally succeeded in the past, and the Bulls will have to trust in his ability to do so. I think Nikola Vucevic will defensively make or break this series. With Lopez and Patrick Williams back, Patrick Williams likely takes Giannis as the on-ball defender. He's a promising defender, but come on, man. It's Giannis. He's gonna get inside. I can imagine the Bulls using Patrick Williams to funnel Giannis into zones and other waiting defenders to some effect, but there are gonna be a lot of times where Vuce is gonna be the last guy between Giannis and the cup. And he's gonna be the guy fighting Giannis and Brook Lopez for boards. I think a massive portion of the Bulls' fate in the success or failure to beat the Bucks is going to rest on his shoulders. Vucevic is also going to have to be far more aggressive rebounding the ball, particularly in his ability to grab offensive boards, which will be a pivotal aspect to a Bulls W. Brook Lopez doesn't get that many boards despite being 7 foot, 280 pounds, averaging only 6.2 boards a game for his career and even less this season. Yet, when I've watched matchups between these two teams this season, somehow, Brook Lopez is looking for the ball more, often looking more active and looking better on the boards than a younger Vucevic, which is really concerning to me in this series. Vucevic's .21 offensive rebounds per defensive rebounds is the lowest rate in his career, and the Bulls currently sit at 28th in the NBA in offensive rebounds and 28th in second chance points. Other than adjusting his offensive role, it will be absolutely crucial that Vuce finds a way or an answer to the sheer physicality and energy that the Bucks are going to bring to him every night. No amount of game planning or adjustments for Demar and Zach Lavine are going to matter if the Bulls can't rely on Vuce to slow the Bucks down inside where they convert the most amount of their buckets. As much as the entire team needs to bring it, if there's any guy on this team that needs to step up the most, it's going to be Nikola Vucevic. I'm going to try and wrap this up because there's really a lot more that I could touch on, but I'm going to try and make it brief. There's a few other tactics I could see the Bulls finding some success in, and that would be put a body on Jrue Holiday. Jrue is going to be searching for opportunities to score the moment the Bulls defenders begin sagging off or collapsing on lanes to slow down Giannis. This is where it would be a luxury to have Lonzo right now. My mind immediately thinks of putting guys with quick hands and feet and high IQ like Alex Caruso on Jrue. Or, if that doesn't work, perhaps playing more out of the box and putting some length on him with guys like DJJ. The Bulls are also going to have to make every shot count. Against Milwaukee, the amount of open looks and free throws the Bulls will get will likely be minimal. Finally, a smaller X factor, I think, is the individual performances of Patrick Williams and Derrick Jones Jr. and their contribution on the defensive end. The Bulls have these guys for this exact reason. They're capable of bailing out guys like Vooch against tough front courts or making the game harder on shooters and ball handlers. These are motor guys, and they're going to have to want it more every night. They're going to need to put their body on the line and take charges from Giannis to try and stack fouls on him, dive for loose balls and make hustle plays. They're going to have to keep moving around the floor and fighting for boards. They're going to have to be there for their team and the fans. Bottom line, they're going to have to play like their entire season depends on it, which it does. I could go on, man, and I could write you an essay about this, but what do you think, Hoop fans? Let me know down below. This video took a lot of work, man. I really wanted to present a positive case for the Bulls squad because I've seen everybody counting them out in this matchup. And look, no matter what happens, I'm going to be watching every minute of this series, and it's going to be a good one. The narratives and tensions and relationships behind these two teams, especially after the Alex Caruso incident, makes it must-see TV in my opinion. That's what basketball is all about, man. That's why we love the game. But once again, I'm your host, Zach. Thanks for watching Attack the Rack. If you liked it, a like on the video or a subscription really means the world to me. I can't wait to watch this matchup, and furthermore, I can't wait to talk about it with all of you. Till next time, y'all.